Warp Core Breach, Episode 29, Lover's Lament.
Captain, enemy ships decloaking off our port bow.
They're charging weapons!
Shields up, red alert!
They're firing!
Containment failure detected. Warp core breach imminent.
Welcome to Warp Core Breach, Episode 29. On this episode, Nick and David review the Constellation. Natasha takes a look at Wave 1 Buried Treasure. Griffin investigates Planetoid 441 with the Dreadnaught. And then we all create custom resources. What would you do?
Warning. Warp core breach detected.
I'm David Montgomery, and here's my co-host, the Alice, to my Tom Paris.
So it's just you, me, and the stars. Hey, Tom?
I don't know, it feels a little empty out here.
Not with you and me.
Somebody save me!
Second star to the right and straight on till morning.
Save me! Alright.
Are you starting on the Smallville theme song here or what?
No, it's more like I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Someone's listening. Many someones, I hope.
Ah, yes. Should note, episode 28, the regional recap, is now our most downloaded episode. Thank you to all of our listeners for that. I am super excited. 400 people.
What's wrong with you people? Just kidding.
Yes, keep telling your friends. Tell your neighbors. Well, maybe not your neighbors if they don't play Attack Wing. Get your neighbors to play Attack Wing, then tell them there's a podcast.
You will become one with the Warp Core Breach.
The Warp Core Breach becomes one with you? In Soviet Russia, Warp Core breaches you.
That would be great. Yeah. Talk about mashups. Speaking of mashups, Scimitar Enterprise E. Discuss.
My money's still on the E. It just has to have ramming speed.
Yeah, but how the heck do they actually separate if they're both not kicking in reverse thrust? Because from what I could see, only the Scimitar was trying to back away, and it would have just dragged the E with them.
It should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then they're one body and...
Mm-hmm. Well, unless, of course, they drop the Bugs Bunny anchor, in which case that'll work.
Well, yeah. Or the Roadrunner Coyote thing.
Yeah.
I feel like Stuart Bird, the director, was partially responsible for Roadrunner cartoons.
Great episode of Farscape, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we go bashing on Nemesis, because that's just too easy to do.
Hey, I still love the movie.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I had fun with it. Gave us Romulan fighters, which are fun. You know, gave us the... I didn't say they were fun in the game of Attack Wing, but they're a fun ship in Star Trek lore.
Oh, wouldn't it be awesome to have like a 4D ride at like Universal Studios or well, not Universal, of course, but you know, at like Disneyland or Vegas or something where you're actually like in one of the Scorpion fighters flying through the corridors? Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something.
Or just an arcade machine. You climb inside. It's like the ones they have at the movie theaters, you know, in the arcade section, and you just climb inside with your buddy and you fly through, and it's kind of like a video adventure.
Yeah, one of you is the driver, the other's the gunner.
Yeah.
It would work.
That'd be pretty sweet.
It would be.
Mm-hmm.
Or even driving the dune buggy.
Highway to the danger zone.
You know, say what you will, but that movie was written for teenage guys. That was just fun. Teenagers and like college frat boys. It was like, yeah.
Totally, for sure, dude.
Right on.
Apparently Valley Surfer dudes.
Yeah, them too.
from the late 80s, early 90s. Go figure.
Okay.
Slightly off
We're
topic.
going. This thing is going off a cliff.
Hey, we're going to reach our point break eventually.
Yeah. Well, right now, I'm going to talk about my last OP. We played The Void.
Yeah.
It was fun. You know what happened?
What?
The championship match? Todd against Craig. It was like California Regionals all over again.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
History repeats itself. Yeah, it was quite amusing.
So the Bozeman showed up then, huh?
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer in the old red uniform. It was great.
I'd love to see a remold of the Miranda class. You know.
I know.
Yeah, the design exists out there. It would be cool to see.
Well, it's like there are two good Mirandas that we still need: the Bozeman and Cisco's ship,
the Saratoga.
Saratoga, thank you.
The one from World 359.
Right. That would give us 3 cool Miranda-class ships, and then you could have a little wing of them, and that would be fun.
Yeah, we'd get a non-mirror Jennifer Cisco.
Yeah, it might even be useful.
Hey!
Not saying the mirror one isn't. The mirror one's insanely useful.
Oh god, yeah.
But, hey, who knows what it does?
Dies. Sacrifice.
Yeah. Hopefully. And if WizKids won't do it, the continuing committee will do it after WizKids is done with the game.
Again, we don't talk about it with outsiders.
Yes, we do.
There are no outsiders. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in.
Yes. And you don't even have to pay anything to be in.
Sweet.
You just get to be in.
It's the exclusive club where everyone is welcome.
Yes. So there was one sad thing that happened at the start of the day for the Void. My custom Future Enterprise model, the right nacelle broke.
Ooh.
So Craig was flying a 2 nacelle Future Enterprise. Fortunately, it glued back together, and everything still looks good. Sitting right next to me, and it's all good. Needs a little bit of paint touch up, but looks good as new. Yeah.
Was it limping for a while?
You know, he couldn't make hard right turns. I wanted to implement that rule for him so bad, but I'm like, I feel like that would probably be a disadvantage to him that he didn't need.
Well, Attack Wings' ancestor, Wings of War, I got to play it at Terminal City Tabletop Convention a couple weeks back, and for the first time, and there's actually the odd plane that can only do turns in one direction. And I seem to recall it had something to do with the direction the propeller spun.
Okay.
So you could do like long banks, but you couldn't do the turns in the direction against or whatever. Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Makes sense, too.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting variation on what I was used to with Attack Wing.
Yeah, and I know they have damage cards that alter the way in which you make turns and moves you can select. And
yeah.
I wish we had more crits that did stuff like that. Although in Wings of War and such, the damage you take is secret.
Yeah, you don't know how much until you must reveal.
Right, so your opponents don't quite know what's going on, and that allows for some more interesting critical effects.
Yeah. And strategies.
Yeah, it also requires a lot more player accountability, and I know when I've played a couple of games, I've honestly forgotten about some things, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I had to do that. Whoops.
Yeah, so like in Wings of War, when you do the come about, which is the Immelman in this case, you have to do a straight maneuver before and after. So it's a little different than Attack Wing there. Basically, you're giving it a run up, and then when you're popping up and flipping over, it's going to take you time to slow down or do maneuvers again, because you're just flipping and running. So that's why they make that.
Yeah.
That's why they make that the rule.
All good stuff, though. Hey.
All good things.
So, Nick, what did you do in Attack Wing the last couple of weeks? It's been a while.
Yes, well, we also did our Void OP and had a blast. As I might have said on the show before or elsewhere online, it's a really well thought out OP. It's got a great, engaging scenario that actually makes you want to participate. Points really matter. Those mission tokens, it can get quite hairy, and it's a make or break whether or not you can grab them, survive, different strategies and tactics. You can steal them from your own ships, which is something a lot of people actually considered. It was a lot of fun to watch, to judge over some interesting ideas and thoughts. And Clayton, one of our newer players, actually gave a good run, and he almost took first place. He came head to head with Jason, and it just wasn't quite enough for his powerful shenanigans. But it was a really exciting bunch of rounds, and I highly recommend, if you haven't had the chance to play the Void OP, take it aside and play it at a casual. Find a friend, somebody, and just try it, because it's a lot of fun. And also, in the last few days or so, just in keeping with the Doomsday Machine OP, as some of you know, there's only a paper token for the Doomsday Machine in the kit. And, might be a little difficult to put in the maneuver templates and everything, and just feels flimsy and kind of cheap. So what I did is I created a 3D printed token for the Doomsday Machine. Perfect, exact in every way, using digital calipers, so it should be tournament legal as long as your TO says A-OK. And then I decided to take it a step further. I added peg mounts to it, and then also printed up the Doomsday Machine itself in model form. It just turned out really cool. I just want to give a shout out to Redfern, wherever you are out there. Thanks for the awesome model. It looks phenomenal, and we'll be able to play that in our local venue in a couple weeks here.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that model, and it looks really good.
Oh, I was so impressed with how it turned out. Yeah, I had to run it through a couple software cleanups to get it to convert from just a pretty 3D model to a printable 3D model, because the standards for each are a little different. So no fault on the designer. He didn't design it with the intention of printing it in 3D. So it wasn't too difficult to patch and fix, and it looks amazing. And a number of people have asked, well, will it work with an LED? Can we light it up? In its current form, no, but if I can hack the 3D model, so to speak, and modify it, I'm going to see if I can get it to a point where you actually can. So, cross your fingers. We'll see what comes up in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. Always like hearing that.
Yeah.
I think we can move on to talking about the Constellation. Does that work for you?
It works for me.
Cool. So, last week we took a look at Wave 23 and, the nightmare that is. And we're not saying that the Constellation is all that much better, but it's a thing. It exists, and it's worth talking about.
Anything Star Trek is worth talking about. Where it goes, nobody knows, but it's worth talking about.
So, Nick, why don't you get us started off with the named ship?
First up, the Doomsday Machine Prize Pack USS Constellation. It is a 22-point Constitution-class Federation starship with 3143 for stats, 2 weapon slots, 2 crew slots, the standard action bar configuration, and its ability says, if all your shields have been destroyed, when attacking with your primary weapon, you may gain +2 attack dice. If you do so, place an auxiliary power token beside your ship. You cannot roll any defense dice during the round in which you use this ability. Definitely interesting, and there's certainly some funky ways to make use of the ability. Particularly my double-decker.
Enhanced hull plating. That's my first thought.
Well, that's definitely something that you want to use in support. So you might throw something like the systems upgrade inside the weapon slot or in the crew slot to throw yourself a tech.
Yeah.
So you can pull that off.
Or
you might
Eric
want to
Motts.
throw it in a crew slot. Yeah, or Motts. Either way, you might want to save those weapon slots for Type 8s and upgraded phasers if you have those.
Right.
I came up with the idea of the double-decker Constellation bus, where you have Matt Decker and you also have Will Decker.
Yes.
So kind of a handy little combo to get that rolling and gain some bonuses along the way.
It works, especially in an era type game.
Mm-hmm.
This works really well because 5 attack dice is a great thing.
Oh yeah, especially as like, I'm going down, I'm taking you with me sort of move.
Which is super thematic for the Constellation.
Absolutely. And if you're just going out to have fun, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to play in an era pure event, this is going to be some pretty cool stuff.
The sad thing is that I want to be able to use the Constellation in Doomsday Machine to take on the Planet Killer, and I can't do that.
Yeah, not unless you snag it on eBay, trade for it from someone who's already played the scenario and won it, or if you're one of those lucky folks where your venue does the scenario more than once. So whether you're just playing for fun after the fact, or if you have enough players and your TO just sets it up so you can play more than once.
Yeah, but even then, at least to the first few suggestions, I don't allow people to use a prize ship that we're competing for.
Because that puts an unfair advantage on the other folks that couldn't get it. Agreed.
Perhaps. Because you never know how good a prize ship could be. So you say,
True.
Level
this would be
playing
one of the few
field.
situations where I'd allow it, because the ship is not really OP. Overpowered, because the OP
Yes.
organized play. Don't want to cross the lines. Don't cross the streams! Anyway, it's probably one of those few situations where you could get away with it, because it'd be more for thematic fun than actual, like, we're gonna rule you.
True. And you know what? This is a great candidate ship to put on Type 8 and upgraded phasers. And then it's even more fun.
Given that it's a Constitution class, you could even throw some of those other goodies on there.
Oh yeah? You've got the dual phaser banks or something like that?
It's a disable, but hey, that's still an extra attack die.
Yeah. I mean, again, good luck ever getting actions once you're using the named ability and enhanced hull plating. It's not going to happen. But at some point, maybe it works. So I think we're both kind of at this point. We like the Constellation. We don't love it, but it could be fun.
It's a good framework ship for Fed. Like, the 3143 is almost the perfect sort of stat balance. There's actually a thread going on in our Facebook group right now covering, what's the perfect stat levels and everything. And one of the things brought up was, like, Constitutions. Because they've got the 4 hull for fighters, they've got the 3 base for your Type 8s and your upgraded. It's got just enough shield, and the point balance is such you can throw a lot on it, whether you're in regular or suggested format, so you've got room to play.
Yeah, my answer to that is still 6010.
Yeah, wasn't that Will that said that?
Will or Joseph, one of the
I think
two.
it was Will.
But it's like, why wouldn't you? That's 14 points for a 6 attack die ship. They'll never ever do it. But talk about a glass cannon.
It's basically a variation on the Zindi Weapon Zero, just without all the massive hull.
Yeah. But why not? How many of those can you fit in a fleet? Because I'll run that many.
Yeah, I'd almost think something like the Fisarius, Balok's ship.
Yeah.
Because it's really big, but for all we know, it could just be hollow. It could be super thin. Advanced technology, good solid weapons, but probably not much from defense. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm with you. All right.
Captain
Matt Decker. 3 skill, 2 points, 1 talent slot.
Talented bloke.
I like skill 3 with a talent slot. That
Yes.
always kind of warms my heart. If this card is assigned to a Federation ship, during the roll attack die step, you may disable this card to gain +1 attack die for that attack. Yeah, good with Hood Riker. That's about it. If your ship is destroyed, you may immediately target a friendly ship within range 1 to 2 of your ship. If you do so, discard the captain card from the target ship. This card becomes the new captain card for that ship.
Yeah, it's not like most of your captains that he'd be replacing would be worse than him, though.
Unless you're trying to swarm and run like 3 Constitutions, 3 fighters.
Yeah, like you throw him on the ship that goes forward, goes ahead to take the first brunt, and then you just keep passing him back.
Yeah, but...
Not recommended.
Here's the thing. His ability is cool. Like, disable for an extra attack die. That's nice. But at some point it turns into, it's an action for an extra attack die.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you support him with Hood Riker, in which case it's also an action for an extra defense die and another battle station conversion.
Yeah.
But it's on such a low captain skill, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't have the draw.
And the best card for boosting captain skill is Pegasus Riker.
Exactly. Put him up 3, but then kicks out Hood Riker.
Yeah.
Our kingdom for a clone machine.
This is a card I want to like, but I can't. And if those weren't enough strikes, if you run this, you can't run Admiral Decker, and that is a better card than this.
Absolutely. Point less and better.
Yeah. So, I think we're done.
Yeah, like, generally speaking, it's other 2-point captains, there's like Data, Captain Skill 4 for 2 points. Eric Pressman, 2 and 3. The other Data, 2 and 3, with you get the free evasive, scan, and battle stations on them. Like, there's a number of other much better options. There's quite a few, actually. So, even of the 2-cost 3 skill or 2-cost 4 skill captains, he's near the bottom.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah.
On a faction that's not Federation, he's maybe better. But
like if he was like an independent or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Bajoran. Bajoran always need more attack dice.
Yeah, like I'd probably rather have Rudy Ransom.
Sure. Like, I don't hate the effect. I just, I can't love it.
Yeah.
So, Standby Battle Stations. Tell us about it.
Well, Standby Battle Stations is a 4-cost elite talent. It's unique. And it says, during the combat phase, you may discard this card to replace 1 token that is beside your ship, which is either an evade or a scan, with a Battle Stations token. This card may only be purchased for a ship that has the Battle Station icon on its action bar. So if you've got a resource or a card that adds a Battle Station icon to the action bar, you can use this as long as that happens during the fleet building stage. If it's something that adds within the game, you would not be able to use this card. 4-point discard to replace one of your actions for something else. I guess it's all right. Yeah, like a 2, and you'd want it on a ship with a low captain skill for sure.
Right, it works great with Decker.
Yeah,
either Decker.
Actually, it's not too bad if you've got something that triggers off the scan at the beginning of your attack, and then you can switch it to a battle station token, spend it for the conversion afterward.
Except scans don't matter until the modified defense die step, which happens after the modified attack die step.
It depends on how it's used there.
And even then, during the combat phase is still a nebulous timing situation. And so, like, this needs a rule clarification on when exactly it works. I would definitely say what I'm doing as a TO, this can't possibly work in the middle of a given combat. You're going to have to do this between ships firing. I don't think anybody's ever going to run it, so I don't think it'll ever matter.
Exactly.
The point is, the wording on this is terrible. The timing of it is so nebulous, it needs to be tightened up.
The fact that it's a non-action and 4 instead of 5 points is an improvement over those 5-point action discards, but you've got to make the ability something that you actually want to actually give it value.
Sure. 2 points? Yeah, maybe we're talking. But 4 points, we're moving on.
Speaking of moving on...
Yes, the damage control party. No, don't get excited. It's not that kind of a party.
Aww.
So, 5-point crew non-unique. Action, discard this card to repair 1 damage to your ship's hull or shields. Or, action, disable this card to flip 1 critical damage card that is assigned to your ship face down.
Here's a controversy.
Yeah, I thought we could repair crits.
Yeah, and based on history, yes, we can. Even by past references through WizKids Wharf. But this card, if it's not errated, could change everything.
Actually, no. It still works because you are discarding to completely remove it. You're disabling to flip it over.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a very small saving grace.
Oh, I understand that. Remember, WizKids has never defined repair. Ever.
True.
It was introduced with Mirok, first off, and then Smiley and Glendaro and stuff like that.
Well, don't forget, there's Scotty.
Trip. Scotty.
Zero.
Yeah. Well, but that was shields. And regaining shields made sense.
Wasn't one of the Scotties also able to do hull?
Oh, the refit Scotty does hull.
Yeah. That was a little bit of a later release.
But Mirok was the first one that let you repair hull. And at that point, we all just assumed, hey, you either get back a shield or remove a damage card from your ship. Face up or face down. And they have never answered what that means. Maybe there's a difference because it's disabled discard, but...
One can only hope that that's the differential that they were going for.
I sure hope so.
Because otherwise...
Otherwise, they're rewriting a rule with 1 card, and that's not how you do it.
No.
Considering this entire wave is so poorly written, we'll get to that with the last card.
Wave?
Well, pack. Anyways, I'm ready to move on.
Auxiliary Control Room. A non-unique 5-cost question mark upgrade card. You may fill a tech or weapon upgrade slot with this card. No ship may be equipped with more than 1 Auxiliary Control Room upgrade. You may disable this card to perform an action while there is an auxiliary power token beside your ship. So it's kind of like a tiny prize upgrade.
I love everything about this card except one thing.
What's that?
The cost.
Yeah, you got it.
Because it's good, it's nowhere near 5-point good.
No. This is like a 1 or 2 pointer, really.
1 point, I think it's maybe too good. 2 points, I think it's perfect.
1 point at a discard. That would be cool. 2 points, disable.
Yeah, as written, 2-point card, we're done. We're happy.
There you go.
No sense in this being a 5-point card.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense. It baffles my mind.
Why is 5 SP the magic number for a bulk of Federation upgrades? It makes no sense.
Well, it's been the magic number for elite talents, and somehow they came down to 4 in this, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's one of the last things I was asking WizKids before things went awry, and I never got an answer to it.
Well, all in all, great idea, cool card, just not costed appropriately.
Nope.
Now, maybe if it said it counts as a tech or weapon, we could get a little bit of flex on that, because then you could apply for discounts with like Hudson, Sakana, stuff like that.
Right.
You know?
Pegasus, Wesley Crusher, Geordie, etc., etc., etc.
Fleet Captain if you're still using it.
Sure.
Yeah, just open a tiny floodgate, nothing dangerous, just something interesting.
Yeah, or really, this is a card that shouldn't be a weapon at all. It should just be a tech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make sense.
But I understand that the Constellation doesn't have a tech slot, so they wanted it to be able to go on the Constellation.
Mm-hmm. But auxiliary control, it's power related, so it could be connected to anything. You could have an auxiliary control room for the weapon system.
You could.
Yeah, so I could see it. It's loose enough, it could work.
All right. Yeah, from one overcosted card to a card that was originally completely undercosted and completely broke the game until they said, oh no, there was missing text. Automated Distress Beacon, 3-point question mark card. You may fill a crew, tech, or weapon upgrade slot with this card. No ship can be equipped with more than one action. Discard this card to target a friendly ship that is not within range 1 to 3 of your ship. The target ship immediately performs an additional maneuver with a speed of 2 straight bank or turn.
Yeah, so the errata was to include the friendly, so you couldn't just target any ship that was not within range 1 to 3.
Still don't like that. I still think the theming of this card was actually exactly as they wrote it. That was the design intent. Because your enemies could come to your rescue. We saw it in the show all the time. Yeah,
the thing that I would have done to this, or one of the things I would have done, is this is one of the times where making it unique would probably have solved it.
Yes.
Because then you can do the one. And on top of that, they should almost have like a fact rule that says no opponent may directly force another player off the table.
It wasn't even that. You could set somebody up where no matter what move they did, they would fly off the table.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. I was actually going to follow up by saying you cannot set them up in a position where they cannot avoid leaving the table.
Yeah. That's so tough to do because you could say, oh, well, they could have pulled a reverse maneuver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I do this with all my actions, but I've done it with my actions, they've already set their dial. They can't go and reset their dial.
Yeah.
So I couldn't help it that they didn't set a reverse maneuver, but where
they could have vaulted with a 6 straight, and you just banked them a little bit towards the edge, and they blast off the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's their fault for choosing a move.
Yeah. And therein comes into timing of the cards that WizKids are creating that forces maneuvers. It's like it should be before the dial choice step.
Right.
Or after it's already gone.
If that card is at the start of the planning phase,
right,
then it works no problem.
Yeah. Or after the activation phase is over before combat.
Sure.
Right.
That would work too. Or spend your action to do this, and then at the end of the activation phase, the maneuver is carried out.
Exactly. There's already a couple cards that have that sort of concept.
I know X-Wing does things where you can move your action up to before you move.
Mm-hmm.
So why not do something like that? Shift your action all the way up to before the planning phase to do that card. You don't get an action after you move.
Right.
I don't know.
So what things like the damage control party and especially the automated distress beacon are teaching us here is playtest, playtest, playtest. The whole point of playtesting is to see how it can be broken, how it can be abused, to see if it can be used and if it is actually useful, and to see if it can break the game. And if it's useless, then you gotta tweak it around so it's something that, at least in some way, shape, or form, somebody might want to use it, and if it's broken, you gotta fix it. Like, honestly, you can't catch everything, but there's a lot of stuff here that should have been very easy to catch in the development stages.
Well, or in simple playtesting.
That's what I mean. That's part of the development stages, right? Because you develop, you create, you think, you hand it to playtesters, they give you feedback, and then you develop further, and so on. It's a back and forth.
Yeah, and it seems like either they don't have enough people playtesting, they don't have the right people playtesting who are looking to break the game, or they're not listening to them.
Right.
Any of those things can be possible, but yeah. So the Constellation, it's there. I do like that named ship, and the rest of the stuff can be fun for campaign. I'm already looking to incorporate this in the campaign I'm doing.
Nice.
But beyond that, like, it's not going to change the face of organized play. The ship might.
I have expected to say organized crime.
Yes. Well,
you want a piece of the action?
No, not really. Most people don't really want a piece of the action.
It was a good episode, though.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I've already done a review on this on the shipyard. I'm kind of out of things to say about this. Do you have anything more to say about the Constellation?
Pretty much mirroring or mimicking what you said. I'm cool with the ship. It's not fantastic, but it's interesting and has some pretty creative applications if you want to play around with it. But the rest of the pack is not overly impressive, and like a lot of semi-useful to not so useful cards, it would take too much work or SP to make them usable.
Right. So
there you go. So with this, the second OP without model, a pre-painted plastic miniature, in the case of how it's often worded on the page, one of the things you need to consider is where are you going to get the model from? In the case of the Constellation, you have the Tiny Prize original USS Enterprise, you have the Mirror ISS Enterprise, and you have, of course, the USS Intrepid prize ship as your options for subbing it in. So there's a few options there, some of which are not likely to be available. Now, one thing, David, you brought up, why did they have the dials in there if you're going to be getting a ship from somewhere else anyway? Tell us about that.
Well, that's because of what you mentioned, the ISS Enterprise.
Right.
When you have a dial of a different faction, you got to get the dial of the right faction. Now, I know we have weird exceptions, like the Robinson only has a Dominion dial. People are going to understand that one.
Right.
And honestly, if somebody shows up with the Mirror Constitution dial, trying to run the Constellation, I don't think there's going to be a problem. I think those two are the exact same maneuver cards. But it's about making sure that all your moves are the same.
Right.
And as long as the moves match 100%, you're good to go.
With the upcoming Cruises ship and Bounty, it's the Klingon Bird of Prey model, but you can't just say, oh, I'm going to take the Brel or the Cavort, because there's a slight differential in the maneuvers. You got the red turn 3s or the white turn 3s. So therein it's important to match dial for dial, class for class. It was established that way in the beginning, and it's a great way to sort of keep things rolling that way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same reason we got a D'Deridex style, because everybody goes, oh yeah, I have tons of D'Deridex styles, including the one in the starter, which is true. But what if you only have the Kazara, and then you get the Temet, but you also have the Terex, which is Mirror? Well, now you can run the Kazara and the Temet using the Terex model, but now you actually have two Romulan dials, and you're good to go.
Exactly. So you don't have to mix over the Mirror to Romulan and just fudge it.
Yeah. So it's weird, but it was something that people were asking. I was even asking a week ago, and I'm like, why did they do that? And then it struck me, oh yeah, that's why they did it. So it does actually make sense why they're doing it. And going forward, Wrath of Khan, we've seen an independent USS Reliant, or SS Reliant. It might be, who knows how they're actually going to name it.
I think it's a typo, because I saw a number of ships that dropped the U, and it was the first line on each of those were actually dropping the first letter. So it might be the SS, it might be the USS, we're not sure.
Well, we've seen an independent Reliant. We can say that much.
That's for sure.
And so that will have an independent dial, which is actually useful to have. Who knows if the maneuvers will actually be any different? It doesn't matter. But this way, when you're running the independent version, you can actually have the independent. And when you're running the Fed version, you have the Fed dial.
Yeah, the ship card itself is indeed USS Reliant Independent. So that was indeed a typo on the page.
Oh, well, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Botany Bay, if we had it, would be an SS.
Yes. So the last thing I wanted to talk about before we kick it over to the contributors, Canadian regionals, and even some of the ones in the US, have kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
How so?
For two reasons. One, the lack of turnout.
Mm.
There was one event where one player was asked to become a judge.
Wow.
And that shouldn't happen. A venue should not be given an event if they don't have a judge ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't get Star Trek Attack Wing run in Vancouver, and you're a judge ready to go.
Yep.
That rubs me the wrong way. Another thing that happened, this same venue, because their turnout was so low, they insisted on only running 3 rounds of Swiss. No cut, not even to like top 4. No cut, no single elimination, nothing. Just 3 rounds of Swiss, whoever's at the top wins.
Yeah.
That's not how you run regionals. That's how you run a monthly OP. And regionals are different. I don't care if 4 people show up for a regional tournament. You run it according to the rules that WizKids have set up, which is 3 rounds of Swiss, and then a cut to top 8. And if you only had 4 people, you'd cut to top 4, because you just cut. And if you had 6 people, guess what? You cut to top 8, you give a bye to seeds 1 and 2, you make 3 play 6, 4 play 5. And it works. Stores are being given these events, and they're making money off of these events, and they're not running it the right way.
Well, that's the thing, is they still have to pay for the kit, the prizes, and all that kind of stuff, so they're not really making money off of this unless they get a good turnout. So I definitely challenge that point.
The other thing is, though, when you sign up for this, you agree to run it a certain way.
Right. Agreed.
And so, if you're not going to run it the right way, you shouldn't be given an event in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a person in the media. I'm going to take my position, and I'm going to lay it out there. And I'm not calling these venues out because they're in the Facebook groups. People can go read it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's now between WizKids and the venues to deal with.
Yeah.
I'm not playing intermediary. But if my venue had done that, I would have refused to go along with it.
Mm.
And they could have found somebody else to judge it. I'm sure that they would have, but I would have wanted no part in it.
Mm-hmm.
I get that venue space is a premium. And I get that if you're expecting 20 people and 6 people show up or 8 people show up, it's a disappointment.
Mm-hmm. But you still have to go full force, full hog, and give those people that showed up full proper experience.
Yeah. Because if you mess up with the people that show up, the next time you do this, they're not going to want to show up again.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And there's a difference between the venues that run things right and the venues that just kind of throw things at the players and say, take care of it. No, don't get me wrong. My venue kind of handed me the prize support and said, hey, are you good? You got this. Let us know if you need anything. I said, I got this. No worries. Yeah. I said, we had conversations. We had all the logistical support. It was easier for me to handle everything rather than trying to tell them what to do. That's for Attack Wing. When it came to running Dice Masters, I needed their help because there were more people.
Yeah.
and having them do the support was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But if we had just been told to run things differently, it would have been an issue, because at that point you're shortchanging the players, and everything has to be about the players.
Absolutely.
And I know at Worlds they ran things like a round short, but that was because otherwise the game would have ended at like midnight, and that would have been a detriment to all of the players. And so that was something that was agreed upon at a player meeting before the day started.
Right.
And that's something, when all the players are agreeing to something going in, that's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't being dictated to them.
Yeah. Transparency, clarity.
It's all about transparency and making sure that you're doing everything the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like these stores weren't. And they're just saying, oh, well, we were going to do it this way, but since only so many of you showed up, including people flying in from out of area.
Yeah.
No, we're just going to do it this other way. Doesn't work.
No. Yeah, it's like saying, okay, everybody, we have blind boosters. Come with your 90 SP builds, and then you're going to have the blinds to go with. And then everybody shows up and says, oh, by the way, we don't have boosters. So how do you play the OP? You just play 90?
I think you'd have to.
Yeah, that, or make everybody buy a retail ship, which not everybody's going to be happy with.
Nope.
You know? Especially if they want the blinds, especially if they plan for them.
Yeah.
You got to run as advertised. And WizKids sets the rules, and they do it for good reason. They do have a lot of good experience with setting these things up in such a way that they function. It's up to us, you know, as other TOs or as stores and as players to help maintain that.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I will say, like when I was running Dice Masters, that varies in terms of how many rounds of Swish you run based on the number of players.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't tell people how many qualifying rounds there would be until we got there. But everybody understood that.
Mm-hmm.
We said, hey, we have this many pre-registered, so it will be at least this many, we think.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going, well, it will be at least 4, it will probably be 5, it might be 6.
Right.
But that's a whole different setup. But then everybody knew, no matter how many rounds there were, then there's a cut to top 8.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get too off the rails, and we've been going for long enough, we're going to toss it over to the contributors. Just a couple this week, but let's hear what they have to say.
Hi, I'm David Griffin. Today we'll be talking about the Planetoid Alpha 441 mission. It came with the Dreadnaught, the Cardassian super missile, and it recreates the Voyager Dreadnaught episode. On the Dominion side, we have 60 points, including one ATR 4107, which is the generic form of the Dreadnaught. And on the Independent side, we have 100 points, hull value 3 or less, and no SP of 35. I think what they actually mean is the maximum SP for each ship of 35, so 3 ships. Now, they're aiming this at the Maquis, but the fact is I think you're better off taking better ships than the Maquis ships. The placement, the planet is centered left to right, 8 inches from the south edge. The Independents are on the south edge, and the Dominion is on the north edge. That's the Dreadnought. The special rules call for the planet to be a munitions base, the entire planet, 2044, range 1 to 2. So it's got 2 weapons, and it can fire at a maximum of range 2, 360 around the planet. Not that that's likely to have a major impact on the scenario. And it's got 8 hit points, 4 shields, and 4 hull. They don't say whether the base can take critical damage, so you just have to make that decision. I would probably not. I would probably just assign damage cards. All right, so there's also another limitation. When you're firing at the base, the Dreadnought loses 3 dice at range 3, 2 dice at range 2, and 1 dice at range 1. So its 6th weapon is somewhat nerfed. Now, the objectives on the Dominion side are to destroy the base or the enemy ships. On the Independent side, to destroy the Dreadnought. Now, this is tilted about 60-40 against the Dreadnought, because the Dreadnought can only have a single ship, And it can't have a captain, and it can't have an admiral, and it can't have a whole lot of things. So it's going to be very difficult to profitably use 60 points. So you're going to end up with a lot of upgrades there. But that's not a bad thing, because if you look at the perk of the Dreadnaught, it allows you to discard upgrades to cancel attack dice. So all those extra upgrades you end up with, you're going to at least be able to get some defensive value out of. And the fact is, since you've only got 60 points and probably not all that well bought against probably 3 very good ships on the independent side, something like the Gorn or the Hirogen, you're going to need all the defense you can get. And since a lot of those defensive abilities are prohibited, since you can only have a maximum of 1 crew, and that's only if you take maintenance crew card, you're going to want to do everything you can to cancel as many attack die as you can on your opponents before you get destroyed. The perk is one thing, as I described. Maintenance crew will allow you to take a crew of any kind. Now, Glendarrow is not bad because you can repair damage to your hull if you get the option, but the maintenance crew also allows you to discard the crew and the maintenance crew to repair 2 damage to your ship in the planning phase, and that could be critical to your success. There's also another card which you should probably take called Evasive Attack Route. Now, Evasive Attack Route allows you to discard a weapons upgrade to get 2 evade tokens beside your ship. And I know if you're like me, you don't like the idea of discarding cards, but especially discarding another card besides the one you're using. But having those 2 evades could make a difference between life and death. So do everything you can to give yourself the maximum possible defense, including a defensive resource if you can find one you like. On the independent side, you're going to want better ships than the Maquis ships. As I said, the Gorn and the Hirogen are good. Concentrate on more dice, something like stalking mode. Go for as good a quality as you can. You've got some good captains on the independent side. The Gorn Commander, the Alpha Hirogen, the Inconsing 8. There's a lot of good ones there that are good potential. You're not going to have really high dice ship, but you can still manage 3 medium quality or 4 or even 5 medium quality if you've got stalking mode. So you're going to be destroying the Dreadnaught pretty quickly. It's only a matter of whether it can destroy the base first. So remember, concentrate on defense rather than offense, and put the best player on the Dreadnaught. Not quite a Kobayashi Maru scenario, but it's definitely more challenging for the Dreadnaught, and there's not much tolerance for error. You want to be as maneuverable as you can, but most of those options are denied you, so you'll just have to use the ATR's rather limited maneuverability to outguess your opponent, to try to limit the number of your opponent's ships that can fire at you at any one time, and to use your defenses as well as you can. And you want to prefer trying to use them early rather than later, because the 3 ships on the other side can destroy the Dreadnaught alarmingly quickly. So nullifying a point of damage here or there could make all the difference. Well, good luck with this. I'd rate this about 3 stars and say it's worth playing. Thanks.
Are you tired of always building to win?
Do you love playing but struggle to build fleets?
Do you struggle to defeat the guy who has everything?
Do you wish you could play the game without being so serious?
Then we've got the segment for you.
This is Natasha.
And Dave. And you're listening to
Dude, It's Just a Game.
Okay, this week we're diving right on into Wave 1, talking about a couple of cards that I think are really interesting. How you doing today, David?
doing alright. Little bummed out to be talking about Wave 1. It's not like it was exactly the all-stars of the game.
Yeah, you gotta have a couple bad eggs, but even in these not great ships, not great cards, I found a couple that I think are at least interesting to talk about.
So, Cloaked Minds, right?
No. Looking first at the IKS Kronos 1, there's a crew member on there called Stex, Now, I remember running Stex, I think, a long time ago. But he's interesting because he gives you the ability to roll in order to avoid having upgrades affected by your enemy.
Yeah, interesting effect. Vic Fontaine from the DS9 Crew Pack does something similar.
Well, yes, but we're not talking about the DS9. I think it's interesting. If we're looking right now, I'm seeing a lot of Jin Cisco coming in, comes and disables 2 of your important upgrades right at the beginning of the game. So it would be really nice to be able to just negate that idea with just a little 2-point crew.
True. Now the thing is, you put Stex on one ship, and that ship's nice and protected. I think the problem a lot of people have is that Klingons don't have many upgrades that are worth protecting. So now you're looking at putting him on a different ship, or a Klingon ship with a whole bunch of cross-faction crew and tech and stuff. But more likely than not a cross-faction ship. And then he's more expensive.
Well, he's 1 point more expensive. I do think that it's useful. I know that I actually successfully used second of 5 at regionals. Now, we're not going to talk about my actual record at regionals, but we will talk about the fact that every time I used second of 5, my opponent cried a little inside. And if they'd had Stex on that ship, that would have been nice for them.
Oh, true.
So, I mean, is it worth it for every crew? Probably not. But I think that there are certain sets, certain builds where people, that extra 2 or 3 points to make sure that their stuff is mostly going to be safe. Seems like a good plan. But again, this isn't a great expansion. I think the only other thing in this wave would have to be on the Praetus, and that would be the Captain Valdor.
Yeah, now I really like Captain Valdor. Skill 5 Captain, middling. But when attacking, if your ship is not in the target ship's forward firing arc, you get an extra attack die.
You know what I use Valdor for a lot? I use him to go under Garib on my drone ship.
Well, you should be using, like, Salatrals, so you get the talent for the same cost, but...
Yeah. You don't usually need a talent on the prototype, though.
Yeah, but you could always use one.
I guess. Anyways, I do think Captain Valdor is interesting. I think that in a joust situation, to be able to finagle your way so that they're in your firing arc but you're not in theirs, that's a little difficult to manage. Specifically with, like, obviously you could never use it against board ships.
Actually, you can. The way the rulings are, they don't have a forward firing arc, so it always works against Borg.
Okay, well, maybe now there's value to that.
Yeah, now, the thing is, Valdor becomes better on, like, Dominion ships that typically have the 180 firing arc, so that you can hit them from alongside. That's where they do have a lot more value.
That's true. I like 180 firing arcs.
Sadly, the Romulans don't have any, and that's what makes him a little less good. He'd also be good on, like, the Bajoran Interceptor, oddly enough, because of how maneuverable it is, and how it can kind of bob and weave throughout the battle.
Sure. But, I mean, you know, this wave did give us our first Defiant. So, you know, that's always a plus.
Yeah. And Ben Sisko's not a bad card, and one that we could have actually talked about here with reasonable certainty. And polarized hull plating was another one we thought about, but...
Polarized hull plating is interesting in certain scenarios. But overall, I think, you know, the wave has some thoughts, but mostly it was kind of the redheaded stepchild after such a good wave era.
Yeah, not to say that there's nothing of value here, but you definitely have to dig a little deeper to find those hidden gems.
That's very true. Alright, well that about wraps it up for our Wave 1. Sorry it was a little light this week, but if we missed anything, let us know. Especially if you're a big fan of that Fifth Wing patrol ship there.
Suicide attack!
And we will see you next time when we start talking about Wave 2. Some exciting stuff there. As always, thanks for listening. And remember,
that dude,
it's just a game.
And now it's time for the Warp Core Breach Question of the Week, where we pose your questions to all of the contributors in the hopes that someone will get it right. This episode's question of the week: if you could create a resource, what would you make?
Well, something that I've been thinking on for quite a long time. Basically, what I would like to see is a new set of flagships for the unsung factions. You know, there's 8 other factions remaining now, 4 that were covered, and then the independent. So there's 8 left that got no coverage. You got your Bajoran, your Borg, your Ferengi, Kazon, Mirror Universe, Species 8472, Vulcan, and Xindi. First off, people say like, whoa, Borg don't need flagship. But there's nothing saying that it has to follow the previous conventions. You could have it just add 3 shields instead of like adding extra weapons or defense or hull. Because I don't think Borg need extra weapon, defense, or hull. So throw it all on shields, give them maybe an ability for gaining back your drone tokens, or reducing the cost of your drone token abilities by 1, minimum 1, something to that effect. That might be kind of cool. Adding something like maybe a crew slot or 2 would be pretty nice for Borg.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that would love to have some Ferengi love. You know, you could do all sorts of different flavor for that. Beyond the stats, maybe introduce something like an economy thing where, you know, you start with some tokens or something like Latinum tokens, and you can spend them for free actions, or to remove auxiliary power, or to undisable an upgrade or something. There's all sorts of interesting little thematic things that each of the factions could benefit from. And this would be a great way to implement some faction theme.
I think that some more flagships, or at least stat enhancements, because I don't necessarily think that everybody needs more free actions.
No.
But at least ways to boost stats. And I think you're right in that you don't always have to go 1-1-1. Having like some 1-2s or some 3s boosted in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes super duper powerful. But, you know, there's a lot of ways around extra shields these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually created, I think it was 6 of them, wrote up all the different stat bases, the abilities, and things like that. So like 8 months ago. I have no idea where I put them, because I actually did it, you know, pen and paper, you know, old school. But, you know, I had some pretty cool ideas then. I'd like to revisit it and see what else I could do.
Yeah, I think I remember us talking about it a while back before we even started this podcast. That may have been our first collaborative effort.
Yeah, we did discuss it, didn't we?
We had some very different ideas, but we also had some very similar ideas, and I liked that.
Indeed. Yeah.
I remember our Vulcan one, we worked on removing aux power tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good fun.
It is logical.
No, I like it. I'm with you. I think more flagships, more fleet captains as well would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Give it some more flavor for the factions that got left out. Like applying an independent flagship or fleet captain to a non-primary 4 faction doesn't always sit right with some players. And in some cases, it may not even be legal if you're doing a solid, pure environment game. So giving it something that actually applies specifically to the faction you're playing, or the ship, or the captain, whichever, would really go a long way. And I think the fans would love it. Because we're all fans, aren't we?
Yeah. So the resource I would make, I don't have a good name for it. So maybe we can come up with that. I want a means of sensor echoing without being cloaked.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are cloaked, I want it to let you sensor echo for free.
So basically you're saying Star Trek Tokyo Drift.
Okay. But the thing is, it's not every single ship. It's not like all the time. Maybe it gives access to every single ship.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's more of like the evasive maneuver template or the skilled helmsman, where you assign it to one specific ship.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something you could let the prototype do sensor echoes. You could give it to your Valdor class, and now you can cloak it, and then you could sensor echo immediately.
Right.
And I think if you equipped it to just one ship, it would be very powerful, but not completely broken.
Well, the other thing, too, is you could do it layered in the sense of, like, officer cards, where if you want to put it on one ship, you pay a certain point cost. If you want to apply it to two ships, you do another cost.
Oh,
or
yeah.
maybe a one ship or fleet cost.
Or even like emergency force fields has a certain cost, and then for every cloaked ship it has an extra cost, and every non-cloaked ship it has a cost, something like that. So it could have a set cost and then scale.
Or it could start out at 0 and it's a certain cost for each non-cloakable ship and a certain cost for each cloakable ship.
Yeah.
And it would have to have like a waiver in there stating that, you know, if you have an upgrade that's going to grant cloak, it counts as a ship with cloak. You can't shenanigans your way with a different cost that way.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Depending on how
that.
you decide the point spread to go, because the non-cloakable ship might actually cost more than the cloakable ship.
You're right. And
Depends
so
on how it would play test.
And I don't have all of those specifics worked out because I had a great idea figured out until last night when I was editing contributors, and Walton had my idea, and I want to let him talk about it because he does it very well, and I don't want to steal his thunder because I feel like you and I steal a lot of thunder from the contributors. So I want to let him have his moment there.
Good man.
But know that I'm totally on board with what he suggests. Another thing I'd like to do as a resource, so I'm going to steal a little bit of a second one. I want a resource to add boost into the game. This is the X-Wing thing where, as an action, you can do a 1 straight or bank. But there's restrictions. It can only go on ships with, I want to say, hull 3 or less. But it might even have to be restricted further, and it might have to be hull 3 or less and primary attack value 3 or less. Although then that takes it away from the Burrells, which I want to include.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe it has to do with total durability?
Or maybe base it on the maneuver dial? Like it must have certain maneuvers?
Yeah. Yeah, it might have to be a maneuver thing.
That could get a little too complicated then.
It might, but the point being, I want to add it to be certain ships, but I don't want to see like Dominion battle cruisers and the Borg boosting around and Enterprise Ds. Like, there are certain ships that should not be boosting in the game. And then there are the little tiny ships that should have the accessibility, and fighters should as well. So that's a thing. But I think that's it for our discussion. So we're going to kick it over to our contributors, and you can hear what they'd come up with. And then it's on you to tell us what you'd come up with, and then what you like from the contributors, what you don't like, what you'd design, and go from there. And maybe we can come up with some really cool things.
Right on.
John Knopp here from the Academy. I have created a resource for each of the big 4 factions: Federation, Klingon, Romulan, and of course Dominion. My local play group plays Faction Pure, and in that environment these were play tested and were found to be fun and thematic. Starfleet Command. 5 points or 0 points if your starting fleet contains an admiral. During force construction, you may place 3 admirals with a combined cost of no more than 10 points underneath this card. During the planning phase, you may deploy 1 admiral under this card to any Federation ship in your fleet, as long as none of your ships currently have an admiral assigned to them. Klingon High Council. 0 points. During the activation phase, after moving, one of your ships may place 1 token from this card beside their ship. Continuing Committee. 0 points. During force construction, you may place up to 4 elite talents underneath this card. During the activation phase, after moving, one of your ships may deploy one of these elite talents as a free action. After doing so, place one time token on that elite talent. The Great Link. At the beginning of the game, place 5 changeling tokens on this card. During the planning phase, at the beginning of the planning phase, you may remove one changeling token from this card and target a ship's captain within range 1 to 3 of one of your ships. Place a time token on that captain. While a captain has a time token on their card, they may not use any of their abilities. In addition, during that movement phase, they are captain skill 10. During that combat phase, they are captain skill 1. Again, I hope you found these to be fun and thematic. Give them a try. Let me know.
Hey everyone, it's Natasha from Dude, It's Just a Game. If I could create a resource for this game, I would create a resource I call Database Exchange. This resource would be similar to Officer Exchange Program, except that it would be specifically for weapons and tech. My resource would have a couple of functions. First, it would of course negate any faction penalty for the 2 factions that you've chosen. But also for those 2 factions, it would allow you to negate any card text-specific SP increases for using cards in a different faction or different ships. This would allow you to use some of those really great cards on even better ships. That's the resource I would create. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, this is Steven Stott with Ready to Play Gaming down in Columbia, South Carolina. Well, I propose one that I call Emergency Power Conversion. What you would do is once per turn for one of your ships in your fleet, you could activate Emergency Power Conversion, and it would allow you to add 1 to either the primary weapons value, the agility value, hull integrity, or shield strength for that turn. You could perhaps put, like, say, 3 mission tokens on the card, and once you spend that action, that's it for that turn. Once all the mission tokens are gone, that resource is used up for the entirety of the game. Or you could make it, just a static one that you could use throughout the game, since you're only using it for 1 ship per turn. But anyway, I think that would be an interesting addition to the game as a resource, and it would be something similar to the old flagship or fleet captain cards to add a little something to it, but keep it in that spirit as well as minimalizing it where it's not too overpowered. Anyway, this is Steven Stott from Ready to Play Gaming, hoping all your dice rolls are hits and evades. Live long and prosper.
This is Big John coming from Da Vinci DreamWorks 2 in South Florida, fighting out of Jensen Beach for the Klingon Empire. My idea for a new resource would be a 5-port resource for cloaking tactics. This would give you 3 cloak tokens, 3 mission tokens that would allow you to sensor echo for free, the ability to use the 1 bank for a sensor echo, and the ability to cloak without any shields. I think this would be a great idea for the cloaking fleets out there. Kapla!
Hi everyone, it's not Picard, and my resource that I would create if I had the chance is Transporter Accident. Transporter Accident would allow you to duplicate one of the crew or captain upgrades in your fleet. Allow you to play it twice. Now, I think what would be better is if rather than duplicating, it allowed you to have 2 of the same name card. So rather than allowing you to have, say, 2 Hood Rikers, which would be insane and horrendous, it would allow you to take both Hathaway Riker and Hood Riker in the same fleet. I like the idea of just bending the rules of the resource. It should probably cost 10 points for it to be fully balanced though, and that would probably cost it out of a lot of people's builds. I think the ability to double up on cards like that, if it was a straight double up, 10 points, possibly if you're only allowing them to take the same name of upgrade twice, then it should only be 5 points. But that would be my upgrade. Transporter Accident.
Hey guys, this is Daniel from To the Ready Room. Now my resource would be called Veteran Captains. It would be a 5-point resource that add +1 skill to all your captains in your fleet. In addition, every elite talent that you assign costs -1 squad point. The problem is elite talents are really expensive and are hard to fit in your builds. at least with -1 squad point, it's a little bit more affordable. So if I could create one resource, it'd be Veteran Captains.
Hi, this is Dave Griffin. Today we're talking about if we could create a resource, what resource would we create? For me, I think there's a need for a generic resource that allows you to up the stats on a given ship. I would say a 2 to 6 point resource, 2 points per stat, that allows you to up 3 stats in a ship by 1. And you can't push the primary weapon above 6. So that's what I would do. It would sort of take the place in some sense of what the flagship used to do. It used to be very nice to be able to slap onto a ship to make it just a little bit better than it was, maybe make it more playable. So that's what I would do. One resource from 2 to 6 points, depending on how many stats you up, and something that allows you to up 3 of your ship stats, whichever 3 you like. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week.
Greetings, Warp Core Breach listeners. This is Bane of Borg with episode 29. If I could create a resource, what would that resource be? Well, I'd like to tell you my resource would be, let's say for 5 points, a resource called Simultaneous Fire. It'll read something like this. Once per game, you may select a ship. That ship may fire its primary and secondary weapons at the same time. You cannot modify the secondary weapon's attack dice. Or I would maybe cost it like this, 20 points for once per turn. Select one ship. That ship can fire primary and secondary weapons at the same time. You cannot modify the secondary weapon's attack dice. So, I'm not sure which way to go. I like the 20 point once per turn because that could get a ship firing maybe 11, 12 dice. It really kind of maybe imbalance the game, but I like that, called Simultaneous Fire. So just a way to use your secondary and primary weapons. It is from a animated episode. I don't remember the episode's name, where they did fire their phasers and photon torpedoes at the same time to disable cloaked Romulan or Klingon ships. So that was where I got the idea. So again, Simultaneous Fire, either a 5 point version or a 20 point version, once per game or once per turn. So hopefully that idea makes you applaud. Thanks, this is Bane of Borg signing off.
Alright, we are back. You've now heard a great number of ideas for OPs, at least OP resources. But for our final topic today, WizKids has finally announced U.S. Nationals and Worlds and how they will be at the same location. Canadian Nationals will be in Montreal a few weeks prior, so you can still get entry into Worlds that way. I know some people are looking at that as maybe a means of a little less competition. Not to down it, but I think a couple more people might qualify that way because it's for every 4 people entered, 1 person gets a buy into Worlds.
Right.
So,
it'll pad the Worlds.
It'll pad
potentially
Worlds a little
pad.
bit. Yeah. Which is good because Worlds should be more than like 6 people.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know exactly how many people are locals to the Montreal venue, but from what I do know, a great many of the Star Trek Attack Wing players are primarily in Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia.
Yeah, which confused a lot of people as to why it was being hosted in Montreal. But I think that comes down to Dice Masters and HeroClix.
Right. And the other thing, too, is given it's Montreal, it's a French-speaking province, and the majority of our community, despite being international, is in English. So it's entirely possible, I'm sure there is, a significant French Star Trek Attack Wing community that I'm not even aware of. So who knows how many bodies strong they are and how significant their community is as far as online presence, engagement, and everything.
Yeah, it's possible. I certainly don't want to diminish that thought, but we don't know.
Yeah, and what a bilingual event is. if you've got a French player that only speaks French and an English player that only speaks English, you're going to need an interpreter. Or you're just going to have to show cards and just do like hand signals.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Attack Wing is it's pretty easy to see like how many dice are being rolled and what moves are on the dial. And yes, you need to know what the cards do, but I believe the cards are in English. I don't know that they've ever been printed in French. So,
like as far as I know, all the cards are printed in English. I think even like in Germany and elsewhere, they're an English version.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. Send us a message if you know otherwise.
Yeah, always happy to know more.
We always encourage listener engagement.
That's how we got a hold of some of our contributors, so...
Absolutely. You don't have to become a regular contributor, but if you have anything, even a one-off bit of information, idea, thought, anything, feel free to submit it to us, either in an email, message on our Facebook page, or as an audio file. You know, we'll take it into consideration, and hey, we might even talk about it or air it on our show.
Yep. I think that's how we got Dan from Ready Room the first time. He had some thoughts for us, and I said, hey, why don't you come on board? And I think that's how we've gotten a couple other people. So, you know, who knows? If you have thoughts, I'll try to recruit you. If you don't want to, don't worry. I know how to take no for an answer. But it's always open. We love having more people to have on here, share thoughts, and keep things going. It's always great to hear different perspectives, different ways of thinking about this game. And if it wasn't for the contributors, I don't think we would have made it to episode 29.
Warp core breach in 10.
And we wouldn't have the drive to keep
9,
doing what we do.
8.
Right.
7.
Alrighty. I
6,
think that's a good place for us
5,
to end. So, until
4,
next time.
This is Nick.
3.
And this is David.
2.
Ejecting the
1.
core.
Warp core ejected.
Warp Core Breach is produced by Nick Norris and David Montgomery, with additional content from our contributors. Our computer is voiced by Corinne Donnelly.
Warp Core Breach is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with CBS Studios Incorporated or the Star Trek franchise. All Star Trek trademarks and logos are owned by CBS Studios Incorporated.
All sound files are used under Creative Commons 3.0 by attribution. For specifics, please visit our Facebook page by searching Warp Core Breach Podcast. If you want to contribute to the show, let us know on the Facebook page, or you can email us at warpcorebreachpodcast@gmail.com.
Now, the Botany Bay, if we had it, would be an SS.
Yes.
As would the SS Minnow. Skipper! Skipper!
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip.
I often wondered if the cast actually swapped for like an episode of Star Trek in Gilligan's Island. So you've got the crew of the original series Enterprise on Gilligan's Island, and you've got the Gilligan's Island castaways on the Enterprise, and sub into the different character roles. It'd be interesting to see how that would play out. Spock and the Professor? Good crossover.
Sure.
Chekhov is Gilligan, or... Food for thought.
Scotty's Gilligan.
Oh, Scotty and Spock are kind of in contention for the Professor role.
But Scotty's got the sense of humor.
Oh, granted.
Although Scotty could be the millionaire.
I think that would be McCoy.
True.
What would Carlin do?
I don't know, but you have to bring Savick in to get Ginger and Marianne. Uhura's one and Savick's the other. Or Carol Marcus.
Yeah. Uhura could be the rich wife.
True.
Not quite the same personality, but...
No, but you're never going to get 100% match.
No.
Yeah.
Like SNL or somebody